around us. The screwback of the earring caught in the wheel. The piece whipped out of Frink's hands and flew to the polished shield, then fell to the floor. He shut off the motor. "Don't let those pieces go," McCarthy said at the welding torch. "Christ, it's the size of a pea. No way to get a grip." "Well, pick it up anyhow." "The hell with the whole thing," Frink thought. "What's the matter?" McCarthy said, seeing him make no move to fish up the earring. Frink said, "We're pouring money in for nothing." "We can't sell what we haven't made." "We can't sell anything," Frink said, "made or unmade. 5 stores, drop in the bucket." "But the trend," Frink said, "it's enough to know." "Don't kid yourself," Frink said. "I'm not kidding myself." "Meaning what?" "Meaning it's time to start looking for a market for scrap." "All right," McCarthy said. "Quit then." "I have." "I'll go on by myself." McCarthy lit the torch again. "How are we going to split the stuff?" "I don't know, but we'll find a way." "Buy me out," Frink said. "Hell no." Frink computed. "Pay me $600. "No, you take half of everything." "Half the motor?" They were both silent then. 3 more stores," McCarthy said. "Then we'll talk about it." Lowering his mask, he began brazing a section of brass rod into a cuff bracelet. Frank Frink stepped down from the bench. He located the snail shell earring and replaced it in a carton of incomplete pieces. "I'm going outside for a smoke," he said, and walked across the basement to the stairs. A moment later, he stood outdoors on the sidewalk, a Tien Lai between his fingers. "It's all over," he said to himself. "I don't need the oracle to tell me. I recognize what the moment is. The smell is there. Defeat. And it's hard really to say why. Maybe, theoretically, we could go on, store to store, other cities. But something is wrong, and all the effort and ingenuity won't change it. I want to know why," he thought, "but I never will. What should we have done? Made what instead? We bucked the moment, bucked the Tao, upstream in the wrong direction, and now dissolution, decay. Yin has us. The light showed us its ass, went elsewhere. We can only knuckle under. While he stood there under the eaves of the building, taking quick drags on his marijuana cigarette, and dully watching traffic go by, an ordinary-looking, middle-aged white man sauntered up to him. "Mr. Frink? Frank Frink?" "You got it," Frink said. The man produced a folded document and identification. "I'm with the San Francisco Police Department. I have a warrant for your arrest." He held Frink's arm already. It had already been done. "For what?" Frink demanded. "Bunko, Mr. Childan, American Artistic Handcraft." The cop forcibly led Frink along the sidewalk. Another plainclothes cop joined them, one now on each side of Frink. They hustled him toward a parked, unmarked Toyopet. "This is what the time requires of us," Frink thought as he was dumped onto the car seat between the 2 cops. The door slammed shut. The car, driven by a 3rd cop, this one in uniform, shot out into traffic. "These are the sons of bitches we must submit to." "You got an attorney?" one of the cops asked him. "No," he said. "They'll give you a list of names at the station." "Thanks," Frink said. "What did you do with the money?" one of the cops asked later on as they were parking in the Kearny Street police station garage. Frink said, "Spent it." "All?" He didn't answer. One of the cops shook his head and laughed. As they got out of the car, one of them said to Frink, "Is your real name Fink?" Frink felt terror. "Fink," the cop repeated. "You're a kike." He exhibited a large gray folder. "Refugee from Europe." "I was born in New York," Frank Frink said. "You're an escapee from the Nazis," the cop said. "You know what that means?" Frank Frink broke away and ran across the garage. The 3 cops shouted, and at the doorway he found himself facing a police car with uniformed, armed police blocking his path. The police smiled at him, and one of them, holding a gun, stepped out and smacked a handcuff into place over his wrist. Jerking him by the wrist, the thin metal cut into his flesh to the bone, the cop led him back the way he had come. "Back to Germany," one of the cops said, surveying him. "I'm an American," Frank said. "You're a Jew," the cop said. As he was taken upstairs, one of the cops said, "Will he be booked here?" "No," another said. "We'll hold him for the German consul. They want to try him under German law." There was no list of attorneys, after all. For 20 minutes, Mr. Tagomi had remained motionless at his desk, holding the revolver pointed at the door, while Mr. Baines paced about the office. The old general had, after some thought, lifted the phone and put through a call to the Japanese embassy in San Francisco. However, he had not been able to get through to Baron Kaelamakule. The ambassador, a bureaucrat had told him, was out of the city. Now General Tadeki was in the process of placing a trans-Pacific call to Tokyo. "I will consult with the War College," he explained to Mr. Baines. "They will contact Imperial military forces stationed nearby us." He did not seem perturbed. "So we will be relieved in a number of hours," Mr. Tagomi said to himself. "Possibly by Japanese Marines from a carrier armed with machine guns and mortars." Operating through official channels is highly efficient in terms of final result, but there is regrettable time lag. Down below us, black-shirt hooligans are busy clubbing secretaries and clerks. However, there was little more that he personally could do. "I wonder if it would be worth trying to reach the German consul," Mr. Baines said. Mr. Tagomi had a vision of himself summoning Miss Afrakian in with her tape recorder to take dictation of urgent protest to Herr H. Reiss. "I can call Herr Reiss," Mr. Tagomi said. "On another line." "Please," Mr. Baines said. Still holding his Colt 44 collector's item, Mr. Tagomi pressed a button on his desk. Out came a non-listed phone line especially installed for esoteric communication. He dialed the number of the German consulate. "Good day, who is calling?" accented brisk male functionary voice, undoubtedly underling. Mr. Tagomi said, "His Excellency Herr Reiss, please. Urgent. This is Mr. Tagomi here, ranking Imperial Trade Mission, top place." He used his hard, no-nonsense voice. "Yes, sir. A moment, if you will." A long moment, then. No sound at all on the phone, not even clicks. He is merely standing there with it, Mr. Tagomi decided, stalling through typical Nordic wile. To General Tadeki, waiting on the other phone, and Mr. Baines pacing, he said, "I am naturally being put off." Reloaded! At last, the functionary's voice once again. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Tagomi." "Not at all. The consul is in conference, however—" Mr. Tagomi hung up. "Waste of effort, to say the least," he said, feeling discomfited. Whom else to call? Tokoka already informed, also MT units down on waterfront. No use to phone them. Direct call to Berlin, to Reichs Chancellor Goebbels, to Imperial Military Airfield at Napa asking for air rescue assistance. "I will call SD Chief Herr B. Kreutz von Mehrer," he decided aloud, and bitterly complain, rant and scream invective. He began to dial the number formerly, euphemistically listed in the San Francisco phone book as the Lufthansa Airport Terminal Precious Shipment Guard Detail. As the phone buzzed, he said, vituperate in high-pitched hysteria. "Put on a good performance," General Tadeki said, smiling. In Mr. Tagomi's ear, a Germanic voice said, "Who is it?" More no-nonsense than myself voice, Mr. Tagomi thought, but he intended to go on. "Hurry up," the voice demanded. Mr. Tagomi shouted, "I am ordering the arrest and trial of your band of cutthroats and degenerates who run amok like blonde berserk beasts, unfit even to describe. Do you know me, Kerl? This is Tagomi, Imperial Government Consultant. 5 seconds or waive legality and have Marines shock troop units begin massacre with flame-throwing phosphorus bombs. Disgrace to civilization." On the other end, the SD flunky was sputtering anxiously. Mr. Tagomi winked at Mr. Baines. "We know nothing about it," the flunky was saying. "Liar!" Mr. Tagomi shouted. "Then we have no choice." He slammed the receiver down. "It is no doubt mere gesture," he said to Mr. Baines and General Tedeki. "But it can do no harm anyhow. Always faint possibility, certain nervous element even in SD." General Tedeki started to speak. But then a tremendous clatter at the office door. He ceased. The door swung open. Two burly white men appeared, both armed with pistols equipped with silencers. They made out Mr. Baines. "Da ist er," one said. They started for Mr. Baines. At his desk, Mr. Tagomi pointed his Colt 44 ancient collector's item and compressed the trigger. One of the SD men fell to the floor. The other whipped his silencer-equipped gun toward Mr. Tagomi and returned fire. Mr. Tagomi heard no report, saw only a tiny wisp of smoke from the gun, heard the whistle of a slug passing near. With record-eclipsing speed, he fanned the hammer of the single-action Colt, firing it again and again. The SD man's jaw burst. Bits of bone, flesh, shreds of tooth flew in the air. Hit in the mouth, Mr. Tagomi realized. Dreadful spot, especially if ball ascending. The jawless SD man's eyes still contain life of a kind. He still perceives me, Mr. Tagomi thought. Then the eyes lost their luster, and the SD man collapsed, dropping his gun and making unhuman, gargling noises. "Sickening," Mr. Tagomi said. No more SD men appeared in the open doorway. "Possibly it is over," General Tedeki said after a pause. Mr. Tagomi, engaged in tedious 3-minute task of reloading, paused to press the button of the desk intercom. "Bring medical emergency aid," he instructed. "Hideously injured thug here." No answer. Only a hum. Stooping, Mr. Baines had picked up both the German's guns. He passed one to the general, keeping the other himself. "Now we will mow them down," Mr. Tagomi said, reseating himself with his Colt 44 as before. "Formidable triumvirate in this office." From the hall, a voice called, "German hoodlums, surrender!" "Already taken care of," Mr. Tagomi called back. "Lying, either dead or dying. Advance and verify empirically." A party of Nippon Times employees gingerly appeared, several of them carrying building riot equipment such as axes and rifles and tear gas grenades. "Cause célèbre," Mr. Tagomi said. "PSA government in Sacramento could declare war on Reich without hesitation." He broke open his gun. "Anyhow, over with." "They will deny complicity," Mr. Baines said. "Standard technique, used countless times." He laid the silencer-equipped pistol on Mr. Tagomi's desk. "Made in Japan." He was not joking. It was true. Excellent quality Japanese target pistol. Mr. Tagomi examined it. "And not German nationals," Mr. Baines said. He had taken the wallet of one of the whites, the dead one. "PSA citizen, lives in San Jose. Nothing to connect him with the SD. Name is Jack Sanders." He tossed the wallet down. "A hold-up," Mr. Tagomi said. "Motive, our locked vault. No political aspects." He arose shakily to his feet. In any case, the assassination or kidnapping attempt by the SD had failed. At least, this first one had. But clearly they knew who Mr. Baines was, and no doubt what he had come for. "The prognosis," Mr. Tagomi said, "is gloomy." He wondered if in this instance the Oracle would be of any use. Perhaps it could protect them, warn them, shield them with its advice. Still quite shaky, he began taking out the 49 yarrow stalks. Whole situation confusing and anomalous, he decided. No human intelligence could decipher it. Only 5,000-year-old joint mind applicable. German totalitarian society resembles some faulty form of life worse than natural thing. Worse in all its admixtures, its potpourri of pointlessness. Here, he thought, local SD acts as instrument of policy totally at odds with head in Berlin. Where in this composite being is the sense? Who really is Germany? Whoever was? Almost like decomposing nightmare parody of problems customarily faced in course of existence. The Oracle will cut through it. Even weird breed of cat like Nazi Germany comprehensible to Ijin. Mr. Baines, seeing Mr. Tagomi distractedly manipulating the handful of vegetable stalks, recognized how deep the man's distress was. For him, Mr. Baines thought, this event, his having had to kill and mutilate these two men, is not only dreadful, it is inexplicable. What can I say that might console him? He fired on my behalf. The moral responsibility for these two lives is therefore mine, and I accept it. I view it that way. Coming over beside Mr. Baines, General Tedeki said in a soft voice, "You witness the man's despair. He, you see, was no doubt raised as a Buddhist. Even if not formally, the influence was there. A culture in which no life is to be taken. All lives holy." Mr. Baines nodded. "He will recover his equilibrium," General Tedeki continued, "in time. Right now he has no standpoint by which he can view and comprehend his act. That book will help him, for it provides an external frame of reference." "I see," Mr. Baines said. He thought another frame of reference which might help him would be the doctrine of original sin. I wonder if he has ever heard of it. We are all doomed to commit acts of cruelty or violence or evil. That is our destiny, due to ancient factors, our karma. To save one life, Mr. Tagomi had to take two. The logical, balanced mind cannot make sense of that. A kindly man like Mr. Tagomi could be driven insane by the implications of such reality. Nevertheless, Mr. Baines thought, the crucial point lies not in the present, not in either my death or the death of the two SD men. It lies, hypothetically, in the future. What has happened here is justified or not justified by what happens later. Can we, perhaps, save the lives of millions? All Japan, in fact. But the man manipulating the vegetable stalks could not think of that. The present, the actuality, was too tangible. The dead and dying Germans on the floor of his office. General Tedeki was right. Time would give Mr. Tagomi perspective. Either that, or he would perhaps retreat into the shadows of mental illness, avert his gaze forever due to a hopeless perplexity. And we are not really different from him, Mr. Baines thought. We are faced with the same confusions. Therefore, unfortunately, we can give Mr. Tagomi no help. We can only wait, hoping that finally he will recover and not succumb. Chapter 13. In Denver, they found chic, modern stores. The clothes, Juliana thought, were numbingly expensive, but Joe did not seem to care or even to notice. He simply paid for what she picked out, and then they hurried on to the next store. Her major acquisition, after much trying on of dresses and much prolonged deliberating and rejecting, occurred late in the day. A light blue Italian original with short, fluffy sleeves and a wildly low neckline. In a European fashion magazine, she had seen a model wearing such a dress. It was considered the finest style of the year, and it cost Joe almost $200. To go with it, she needed 3 pairs of shoes, more nylon stockings, several hats, and a new handmade black leather purse. And, she discovered, the neckline of the Italian dress demanded the new brasiers, which covered only the lower part of each breast. Viewing herself in the full-length mirror of the dress shop, she felt overexposed and a little insecure about bending over. But the salesgirl assured her that the new half-bras remained firmly in place despite their lack of straps. Just up to the nipple, Juliana thought as she peered at herself in the privacy of the dressing room, and not 1 millimeter more. The bras, too, cost quite a bit. Also imported, the salesgirl explained, and handmade. The salesgirl showed her sportswear, too, shorts and bathing suits and a terry-cloth beach robe. But all at once Joe became restless, so they went on. As Joe loaded the parcels and bags into the car, she said, "Don't you think I'm going to look terrific?" "Yes," he said in a preoccupied voice. "Especially that blue dress. You wear that when we go there, to Abendson's. Understand?" He spoke the last word sharply, as if it was an order. The tone surprised her. "I'm a size 12 or 14, she said as they entered the next dress shop. The salesgirl smiled graciously and accompanied them to the racks of dresses. What else did she need, Juliana wondered. Better to get as much as possible while she could. Her eyes took in everything at once, the blouses, skirts, sweaters, slacks, coats. Yes, a coat. "Joe," she said, "I have to have a long coat, but not a cloth coat." They compromised with one of the synthetic fiber coats from Germany. It was more durable than natural fur and less expensive, but she felt disappointed. To cheer herself up, she began examining jewelry. But it was dreary costume junk without imagination or originality. "I have to get some jewelry," she explained to Joe. "Earrings at least, or a pin to go with the blue dress." She led him along the sidewalk to a jewelry store. "And your clothes," she remembered with guilt. "We have to shop for you, too." While she looked for jewelry, Joe stopped at a barber shop for his haircut. When he appeared a half hour later, she was amazed. He had not only gotten his hair cut as short as possible, but he had had it dyed. She would hardly have recognized him. He was now blonde. Good God, she thought, staring at him. Why? Shrugging, Joe said, "I'm tired of being a wop." That was all he would say. He refused to discuss it as they entered a men's clothing store and began shopping for him. They bought him a nicely tailored suit of one of DuPont's new synthetic fibers, Dacron, and new socks, underwear, and a pair of stylish, sharp-toed shoes. What now, Juliana thought? Shirts and ties. She and the clerk picked out 2 white shirts with French cuffs, several ties made in France, and a pair of silver cufflinks. It took only 40 minutes to do all the shopping for him. She was astonished to find it so easy compared to her own. His suit, she thought, should be altered, but again Joe had become restless. He paid the bill with the Reichsbank notes which he carried. I know something else, Juliana realized. A new billfold. So she and the clerk picked out a black alligator billfold for him, and that was that. They left the store and returned to the car. It was 4:30, and the shopping, at least as far as Joe was concerned, was over. "You don't want the waistline taken in a little?" she asked Joe as he drove out into downtown Denver traffic. "On your suit?" "No." His voice, brusque and impersonal, startled her. "What's wrong? Did I buy too much?" "I know that's it," she said to herself. "I spent much too much. I could take some of the skirts back. Let's eat dinner," he said. "Oh, God," she exclaimed. "I know what I didn't get. Nightgowns." He glared at her ferociously. "Don't you want me to get some nice new pajamas?" she said, "so I'll be all fresh and—" "No!" He shook his head. "Forget it. Look for a place to eat." Juliana said in a steady voice, "We'll go and register at the hotel first so we can change. Then we'll eat." And it better be a really fine hotel, she thought, or it's all off, even this late. And we'll ask them at the hotel what's the best place in Denver to eat, and the name of a good nightclub where we can see a once-in-a-lifetime act. Not some local talent, but some big names from Europe, like Eleanor Perez or Willie Beck. I know great UFA stars like that come out to Denver because I've seen the ads, and I won't settle for anything less. As they searched for a good hotel, Juliana kept glancing at the man beside her. With his hair short and blonde, and in his new clothes, he doesn't look like the same person, she thought. Do I like him better this way? It was hard to tell. And me, when I've been able to arrange for my hair being done, will be two different persons almost, created out of nothing, or rather out of money. But I just must get my hair done, she told herself. They found a large, stately hotel in downtown Denver with a uniformed doorman who arranged for the car to be parked. That was what she wanted. And the bellboy, actually a grown man but wearing the maroon uniform, came quickly and carried all their parcels and luggage, leaving them with nothing to do but climb the wide, carpeted steps under the awning, pass through the glass and mahogany doors and into the lobby. Small shops on each side of the lobby, flower shop, gifts, candy, place to telegraph, desk to reserve plane flights, the bustle of guests at the desk and the elevators, the huge potted plants, and under their feet the carpeting, thick and soft. She could smell the hotel, the many people, the activity. Neon signs indicated in which direction the hotel restaurant, cocktail lounge, snack bar lay. She could barely take it all in as they crossed the lobby and at last reached the reservation desk. There was even a bookstore. While Joe signed the register, she excused herself and hurried over to the bookstore to see if they had The Grasshopper. Yes, there it was, a bright stack of copies, in fact, with a display sign saying how popular and important it was, and of course that it was verboten in German-run regions. A smiling, middle-aged woman, very grandmotherly, waited on her. The book cost almost $4, which seemed to Juliana a great deal, but she paid for it with a Racksbank note from her new purse and then skipped back to join Joe. Leading the way with their luggage, the bellboy conducted them to the elevator and then up to the second floor, along the corridor, silent and warm and carpeted, to their superb, breathtaking room. The bellboy unlocked the door for them, carried everything inside, adjusted the window and lights. Joe tipped him and he departed, shutting the door after him. All was unfolding exactly as she wanted. How long will we stay in Denver? She asked Joe, who had begun opening packages on the bed. Before we go on up to Cheyenne? He did not answer. He had become involved in the contents of his suitcase. 1 day or 2, she asked as she took off her new coat. Do you think we could stay 3? Lifting his head, Joe answered, We're going on tonight. At first she did not understand, and when she did, she could not believe him. She stared at him, and he stared back with a grim, almost taunting expression, his face constricted with enormous tension, more than she had seen in any human in her life before. He did not move. He seemed paralyzed there, with his hands full of his own clothing from the suitcase, his body bent. After we eat, he added. She could not think of anything to say. So wear that blue dress that cost so much, he said. The one you like, the really good one, you understand? Now he began unbuttoning his shirt. I'm going to shave and take a good hot shower. His voice had a mechanical quality, as if he were speaking from miles away through some sort of instrument. Turning, he walked toward the bathroom with stiff, jerky steps.
Stop a sec. I gotta heal.
With difficulty she managed to say, It's too late tonight. No. We'll be through dinner around 5:30, 6 at the latest. We can get up to Cheyenne in 2.5 hours. That's only 8:30, say 9 at the latest.
Let's move.
We can phone from here. Tell Abinson we're coming. Explain the situation. That'll make an impression, a long-distance call. Say this. We're flying to the West Coast. We're in Denver only tonight, but we're so enthusiastic about his book. We're going to drive up to Cheyenne and drive back again tonight, just for a chance to... She broke in. Why? Tears began to surge up into her eyes, and she found herself doubling up her fists with the thumbs inside, as she had done as a child. She felt her jaw wobble, and when she spoke, her voice could hardly be heard. I don't want to go and see him tonight. I'm not going. I don't want to at all, even tomorrow. I just want to see the sights here, like you promised me. And as she spoke, the dread once more reappeared and settled on her chest, the peculiar, blind panic that had scarcely gone away, even in the brightest of moments with him. It rose to the top and commanded her. She felt it quivering in her face, shining out so that he could easily take note of it. Joe said, "We'll buzz up there, and then afterward, when we come back, we'll take in the sights here." He spoke reasonably, and yet still with the stark deadness as if he were reciting. "No," she said. "Put on that blue dress." He rummaged around among the parcels until he found it in the largest box. He carefully removed the cord, got out the dress, laid it on the bed with precision. He did not hurt it. "Okay? You'll be a knockout. Listen, we'll buy a bottle of high-priced scotch and take it along. That's VAT 69. Frank, she thought. Help me. I'm in something I don't understand. "It's much farther," she answered, "than you realize. I looked on the map. It'll be real late when we get there, more like 11 or past midnight." He said, "Put on the dress, or I'll kill you." Closing her eyes, she began to giggle. My training, she thought. It was true, after all. Now we'll see. Can he kill me, or can't I pinch a nerve in his back and cripple him for life? But he fought those British commandos. He's gone through this already many years ago. "I know you maybe can throw me," Joe said, "or maybe not." "Not throw you," she said. "Maim you permanently. I actually can. I lived out on the West Coast. The Japs taught me up in Seattle. You go on to Cheyenne if you want to, and leave me here. Don't try to force me. I'm scared of you, and I'll try." Her voice broke. "I'll try to get you so bad if you come at me." "Oh, come on, put on the goddamn dress. What's this all about? You must be nuts, talking like that about killing and maiming. Just because I want you to hop in the car after dinner and drive up to the Autobahn with me and see this fellow who's booked you." A knock at the door. Joe stalked to it and opened it. A uniformed boy in the corridor said, "Valet service, you inquired at the desk, sir." "Oh, yes," Joe said, striding to the bed. He gathered up the new white shirts which he had bought and carried them to the bellboy. "Can you get them back in half an hour?" "Just ironing out the folds," the boy said, examining them. "Not cleaning. Yes, I'm sure they can, sir." As Joe shut the door, Juliana said, "How did you know a new white shirt can't be worn until it's pressed?" He said nothing. He shrugged. "I had forgotten," Juliana said. "And a woman ought to know. When you take them out of the cellophane, they're all wrinkled. When I was younger, I used to dress up and go out a lot." "How did you know the hotel had valet service?" "I didn't know it." "Did you really have your hair cut and dyed? I think your hair always was blonde and you were wearing a hairpiece. Isn't that so?" Again he shrugged. "You must be an SD man," she said, "posing as a WAP truck driver. You never fought in North Africa, did you? You're supposed to come up here to kill Adamson. Isn't that so? I know it is. I guess I'm pretty dumb." She felt dried up, withered. After an interval, Joe said, "Sure, I fought in North Africa. Maybe not with Paddy's artillery battery, with the Brandenburgers," he added. "Wehrmacht Commando. Infiltrated British HQs. I don't see what difference it makes. We saw plenty of action, and I was at Cairo. I earned the medal and a battlefield citation. Corporal." "Is that fountain pen a weapon?" He did not answer. "A bomb," she realized, suddenly, saying it aloud. "A booby-trap kind of bomb that's wired so it'll explode when someone touches it." "No," he said. "What you saw is a 2-watt transmitter and receiver, so I can keep in radio contact, in case there's a change of plan, what with the day-by-day political situation in Berlin. You check in with them just before you do it, to be sure." He nodded. "You're not Italian. You're a German. Swiss," she said. "My husband is a Jew." "I don't care what your husband is. All I want is for you to put on that dress and fix yourself up so we can go to dinner. Fix your hair somehow. I wish you could have gotten to the hairdressers. Possibly the hotel beauty salon is still open. You could do that while I wait for my shirts and take my shower.
You say we get moving.
How are you going to kill us? Joe said, please, put on the new dress, Juliana. I'll phone down and ask about the hairdresser. He walked over to the room phone. Why do you need me along? Dialing, Joe said. We have a folder on Abinson, and it seems he is attracted to a certain type of dark, libidinous girl. A specific Middle Eastern or Mediterranean type. As he talked to the hotel people, Juliana went over to the bed and lay down. She shut her eyes and put her arm across her face.
Over here.
They do have a hairdresser, Joe said when he had hung up the phone. And she can take care of you right away. You go down to the salon, it's on the mezzanine. He handed her something. Opening her eyes, she saw that it was more Reichsbank notes. To pay her. She said, let me lie here. Will you please? He regarded her with a look of acute curiosity and concern. Seattle is like San Francisco would have been, she said, if there had been no great fire. Real old wooden buildings and some brick ones, and hilly like yesterday. The Japs there go back to a long time before the war. They have a whole business section, houses, stores, and everything very early. It's a port. This little old Jap who taught me. I had gone up there with a merchant marine guy, and while I was there I started taking these lessons. Minoru Ichoyasu. He wore a vest and tie. He was as round as a yo-yo. He taught upstairs in a Jap office building and had that old-fashioned gold lettering on his door and a waiting room like a dentist's office with National Geographics. Bending over her, Joe took hold of her arm and lifted her to a sitting position. He supported her, propped her up. What's the matter? You act like you're sick. He peered into her face, searching her features. I'm dying, she said. It's just an anxiety attack. Don't you have them all the time? I can get you a sedative from the hotel pharmacy. What about phenobarbital? And we haven't eaten since 10 this morning. You'll be all right. When we get to Abinson, you don't have to do a thing. Only stand there with me. I'll do the talking. Just smile and be companionable with me and him. Stay with him and make conversation with him, so that he stays with us and doesn't go off somewhere. When he sees you, I'm certain he'll let us in, especially with that Italian dress cut as it is. I'd let you in myself if I were he. Let me go into the bathroom, she said. I'm sick, please. She struggled loose from him. I'm being sick. Let me go. He let her go, and she made her way across the room and into the bathroom. She shut the door behind her. I can do it, she thought. She snapped the light on. It dazzled her. She squinted. I can find it. In the medicine cabinet, a courtesy pack of razor blades, soap, toothpaste. She opened the fresh little pack of blades. Single page. Yes. Unwrapped the new greasy blue glass blade. Water ran in the shower. She stepped in. Good God, she had on her clothes. Ruined. Her dress clung. Hair streaming. Horrified, she stumbled, half fell, groping her way out, water drizzling from her stockings. She began to cry. Joe found her standing by the bowl. She had taken her wet, ruined suit off. She stood naked, supporting herself on one arm, leaning and resting. Jesus Christ, she said to him when she realized he was there. I don't know what to do. My jersey suit is ruined. It's wool. She pointed. He turned to see the heap of sodden clothes. Very calmly, but his face was stricken, he said, Well, you weren't going to wear that anyhow. With a fluffy white hotel towel, he dried her off, led her from the bathroom back to the warm, carpeted main room. Put on your underwear. Get something on. I'll have the hairdresser come up here. She has to, that's all there is. Again, he picked up the phone and dialed. What did you get me in the way of pills? She asked, when he had finished phoning. I forgot. I'll call down to the pharmacy. No, wait. I have something. Nembutal or some damn thing. Hurrying to his suitcase, he began rummaging. When he held out 2 yellow capsules to her, she said, "Will they destroy me?" She accepted them clumsily. "What?" he said, his face twitching. "Rot my lower body," she thought. "Groined dry." "I mean," she said cautiously, "weaken my concentration?" "No, it's some AG Chemie product they give back home. I use them when I can't sleep. I'll get you a glass of water."
Cover me.
He ran off.
I'm reloading.
Blade, she thought. I swallowed it. Now cuts my loins forever. Punishment. Married to a Jew and shacking up with a Gestapo assassin. She felt tears again in her eyes, boiling. For all I have committed. Wrecked. "Let's go," she said, rising to her feet. "The hairdresser." "You're not dressed." He led her, sat her down, tried to get her underpants onto her without success. "I have to get your hair fixed," he said in a despairing voice. "Where is that whore, that woman?" She said, speaking slowly and painstakingly, "Hair creates bear who removes spots in nakedness. Hiding, no hide to be hung with a hook. The hook from God. Hair, here, who? Pills eaten, probably turpentine acting. They all met, decided dangerous, most corrosive solvent to eat me forever.
Okay.
Staring down at her, Joe blanched.
Get you back up.
Yo,
Must read into me,
Find you some first aid.
she thought.
Because if you're
Reads my mind with his machine, although I can't find it.
damn thing hurts.
Those pills, she said, confuse and bewilder. He said, "You didn't take them." He pointed to her clenched fist. She discovered that she still had them there. "You're mentally ill," he said. He had become heavy, slow like some inert mass. "You're very sick. We can't go." "No, doctor," she said. "I'll be okay." She tried to smile. She watched his face to see if she had. Reflection from his brain caught my thoughts in rots. "I can't take you to the Abendsons," he said. "Not now, anyway. Tomorrow, maybe you'll be better. We'll try tomorrow. We have to. May I go to the bathroom?" He nodded, his face working, barely hearing her. So she returned to the bathroom. Again she shut the door. In the cabinet another blade, which she took in her right hand. She came out once more. "Bye-bye," she said. As she opened the corridor door, he exclaimed, grabbed wildly at her. "Whisk!"
Hold up.
"It is
I gotta
awful,"
heal.
she said. "They violate. I ought to know. Ready for purse snatcher. The various night prowlers I can certainly handle. Where had this one gone? Slapping his neck. Doing a dance. "Let me by," she said. "Don't bar my way unless you want a lesson. However, only women." Holding the blade up, she went on opening the door. Joe sat on the floor, hands pressed to the side of his throat. Sunburn posture. "Goodbye," she said, and shut the door behind her. The warm, carpeted corridor. A woman in a white smock, humming or singing, wheeled a cart along, head down. Gawked at door numbers, arrived in front of Juliana. The woman lifted her head, and her eyes popped, and her mouth fell. "Oh, sweetie," she said, "you really are tight. You need a lot more than a hairdresser. You go right back inside your room and get your clothes on before they throw you out of this hotel. My good Lord." She opened the door behind Juliana. "Have your man sober you up. I'll have room service send up hot coffee. Please now get into your room." Pushing Juliana back into the room, the woman slammed the door after her, and the sound of her cart diminished. "Hairdresser lady," Juliana realized. Looking down, she saw that she did have nothing on. The woman had been correct. "Joe," she said, "they won't let me."
Man, they really trashed this place.
She found the bed, found a suitcase, opened it, spilled out clothes, underwear, then blouse and skirt, pair of low-heeled shoes. "Made me come back," she said. Finding a comb, she rapidly combed her hair, then brushed it. What an experience! That woman was right outside, about to knock. Rising, she went to find the mirror. "Is this better?" Mirror in the closet door. Turning, she surveyed herself, twisting, standing on tiptoe. "I'm so embarrassed," she said, glancing around for him. "I hardly know what I'm doing. You must have given me something. Whatever it was, it just made me sick instead of helping me." Still sitting on the floor, clasping the side of his neck, Joe said, "Listen, you're very good. You cut my aorta, artery in my neck."
Reloading!
Giggling, she clapped her hand to her mouth. "Oh, God, you're such a fool. I mean, you get words all wrong. The aorta's in your chest. You mean the carotid." "If I let go," he said, "I'll bleed out in 2 minutes. You know that. So get me some kind of help. Get a doctor or an ambulance. You understand me?" "Did you mean to?" "Evidently. Okay. You'll call or go get someone?" After pondering, she said, "I meant to." "Well," he said, "anyhow, get them for me, for my sake." "Go yourself." "I don't have it completely closed." Blood had seeped through his fingers, she saw, down his wrist, pool on the floor. "I don't dare move.
Stay here.
I have to stay here."
Cover me!
She put on her new coat, closed her new handmade leather purse, picked up her suitcase and as many of the parcels which were hers as she could manage. In particular, she made sure she took the big box and the blue Italian dress tucked carefully in it. As she opened the corridor door, she looked back at him. "Maybe I can tell them at the desk," she said. "Downstairs." "Yes," he said. "All right," she said. "I'll tell them. Don't look for me back at the apartment in Cannon City because I'm not going back there. And I have most of those Reichsbank notes, so I'm in good shape in spite of everything. Goodbye. I'm sorry." She shut the door and hurried along the hall as fast as she could manage, lugging the suitcase and parcels. At the elevator, an elderly, well-dressed businessman and his wife helped her. They took the parcels for her, and downstairs in the lobby they gave them to a bellboy for her. "Thank you," Juliana said to
I
them.
can help you.
Ready for this?
After the bellboy had carried her suitcase and parcels across the lobby and out onto the front sidewalk, she found a hotel employee who could explain to her how to get back her car. Soon she was standing in the cold concrete garage beneath the hotel, waiting while the attendant brought the Studebaker around. In her purse, she found all kinds of change. She tipped the attendant, and the next she knew she was driving up a yellow-lit ramp and onto the dark street with its headlights, cars, advertising neon signs. The uniformed doorman of the hotel personally loaded her luggage and parcels into the trunk for her, smiling with such hearty encouragement that she gave him an enormous tip before she drove away. No one tried to stop her, and that amazed her. They did not even raise an eyebrow. "I guess they know he'll pay," she decided. Or maybe he already did when he registered for it. While she waited with other cars for a streetlight to change, she remembered that she had not told them at the desk about Joe sitting on the floor of the room needing the doctor. Still waiting up there. Waiting from now on until the end of the world. Or until the cleaning women showed up tomorrow sometime. "I better go back," she decided. Or telephone. Stop at a payphone booth. It's so silly, she thought as she drove along, searching for a place to park and telephone. Who would have thought an hour ago? when we signed in, when we shopped. We almost went on, got dressed up, and went out to dinner. We might even have gotten out to the nightclub. Again she had begun to cry, she discovered. Tears dripped from her nose onto her blouse as she drove.
Nice shot.
Too bad I didn't consult the Oracle. It would have known and warned me.
Ammo here.
Weapons over
Why
here.
didn't I? Any time I could have asked, any place along the trip or even before we left. She began to moan involuntarily. The noise, a howling she had never heard issue out of her before, horrified her. But she could not suppress it even though she clamped her teeth together. A ghastly chanting, singing, wailing, rising up through her nose. When she had parked, she sat with the motor running, shivering, hands in her coat pockets. Christ, she said to herself miserably.
Reloading!
Well, I guess that's the sort of thing that happens. She got out of the car and dragged her suitcase from the trunk. In the back seat, she opened it and dug around among the clothes and shoes until she had hold of the 2 black volumes of the Oracle. There in the back seat of the car, with the motor running, she began tossing 3 RMS dimes, using the glare of a department store window to see by. "What'll I do?" she asked it. "Tell me what to do, please." Hexagram 42. Increase. With moving lines in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and top places, therefore changing to hexagram 43, breakthrough.
Grabbing pills.
She scanned the text ravenously, catching up the successive stages of meaning in her mind, gathering it and comprehending. Jesus. It depicted the situation exactly, a miracle once more. All that had happened, there, before her eyes, blueprint, schematic. It furthers one to undertake something. It furthers one to cross the great water. Trip. To go and do something important, not stay here. Now the lines, her lips moved, speaking. 10 pairs of tortoises cannot oppose him. Constant perseverance brings good fortune.
Cover me.
The king presents him before God. Now 6 in the 3rd, reading, she became dizzy. One is enriched through unfortunate events. No blame if you are sincere and walk in the middle and report with a seal to the prince. The prince. It meant Abinson. The seal, the new copy of his book.
Grabbing this shotgun.
Unfortunate events. The Oracle knew what had happened to her, the dreadfulness with Joe or whatever he was. She read 6 in the 4th place. If you walk in the middle and report to the prince, he will follow. I must go there, she realized. Even if Joe comes after me, she devoured the last moving line, 9 at the top. He brings increase to no one. Indeed, someone even strikes him. He does not keep his heart constantly steady. Misfortune. Oh, God, she thought. It means the killer. The Gestapo people. It's telling me that Joe or someone like him, someone else, will get there and kill Abinson. Quickly she turned to hexagram 43, the judgment. One must resolutely make the matter known at the court of the king. It must be announced truthfully. Danger. It is necessary to notify one's own city. It does not further to resort to arms. It furthers one to undertake something. So it's no use to go back to the hotel and make sure about him. It's hopeless, because there will be others sent out. Again, the Oracle says, even more emphatically, get up to Cheyenne and warn Abinson, however dangerous it is to me. I must bring him the truth. She shut the volume. Getting back behind the wheel of the car, she backed out into traffic. In a short time, she had found her way out of downtown Denver and onto the main Autobahn going north. She drove as fast as the car would go. the engine making a strange, throbbing noise that shook the wheel and the seat and made everything in the glove compartment rattle. "Thank God for Dr. Todt and his Autobahns," she said to herself, as she hurtled along through the darkness, seeing only her own headlights and the lines marking the lanes. At 10 o'clock that night, because of tire trouble, she had still not reached Cheyenne, so there was nothing to do but pull off the road and search for a place to spend the night. An Autobahn exit sign ahead of her read, "Greeley 5 miles." "I'll start out again tomorrow morning," she told herself as she drove slowly along the main street of Greeley a few minutes later. She saw several motels with vacancy signs lit, so there was no problem. What I must do, she decided, is call Abinson tonight and say I'm coming. When she had parked, she got wearily from the car, relieved to be able to stretch her legs. All day on the road from 8 in the morning on. An all-night drugstore could be made out not far down the sidewalk. Hands in the pockets of her coat, she walked that way, and soon she was shut up in the privacy of the phone booth, asking the operator for Cheyenne information. Their phone, thank God, was listed. She put in the quarters and the operator rang. "Hello?" a woman's voice sounded presently, a vigorous, rather pleasant younger woman's voice, a woman no doubt about her own age. "Mrs. Abinson?" Juliana said. "May I talk to Mr. Abinson?" "Who is this, please?" Juliana said. "I read his book, and I drove all day up from Cannon City, Colorado. I'm in Greeley now. I thought I could make it to your place tonight, but I can't, so I want to know if I can see him sometime tomorrow." After a pause, Mrs. Abinson said in a still pleasant voice, "Yes, it's too late now. We go to bed quite early. Was there any special reason why you wanted to see my husband?"